I thought we'd focus a bit today about the time slices we talked about before, how when we observe the breath, we're going to be observing more narrower slices of the breath. So we're not going to be observing breath as just one cycle going in and out. We'll try to break it down so we actually just observe the small slices of breath. And then someone actually asked me one time, so how big is a slice? And I said, as small as you can make it, because the thing is, you keep making those slices of the breath smaller and smaller, and eventually there's no slice. It's just awareness of breath, whatever it's doing. Sometimes it's still, sometimes it's moving, but we have to kind of move towards that. And it's an interesting experience, and yeah, we'll try doing that. Oh, nice, my mama. I love the slices now, but been doing it for this past week. It's a kind of a mindset, because time, we discussed this last time, time is created by our distorting towards the past and the future. It's not so much people get lost in the idea that it's the mind that creates time, but it's actually not. It's a sensation, and many times that comes from thoughts, but that's a secondary effect. The time, sense of time, comes from distorting towards the past and the future. Calculus flashbacks from that explanation. Oh, really? Okay. I have also incorporated in my daily life. Good. And Tim, that's exactly the thing. When we walk around in daily life, we feel this, we kind of stretch. If this is time, just a line, kind of X, Y, and Z axis, then there's a fourth axis, which is time. And it's just straight. And we kind of move at a constant rate for some reason, universal law, on this line of time. But we're not experiencing this. We're kind of stretching our awareness to distort against the past and the future. So we're never really here. But when you stop doing that, it just kind of, you drop in, and time still moves. It's just that it doesn't feel like it moving, because there's no past, there's no feeling of past and no feeling of future. And that's what I call the non-centric experience, or non-dual experience, which I think we've discussed a bit, and I discussed it quite a lot in many of my videos. But anyway, we're getting, for those of you who are new, we do 5 minutes, or in this case, 8 minutes, since time doesn't exist. Sorry, our experience of time is wrong. It's not that time doesn't exist. So we do 5 minutes before introduction. We just talk a little bit, then we sit for 20 minutes, and today is Monday, so we have guided meditation. After those 20 minutes, we have questions and answers for those who are curious. Nice. So just put yourself in a comfortable position, and we'll start with something we've been doing lately with this, which is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. And you can just do it at the same time as I'm doing it. So we say 5 things we can see, 5 things we can hear, touch, 3 things we can hear, 2 things we can smell, and 1 thing we can taste. And this is an exercise to bring you back to your senses. So it's not that you just kind of, yeah, I've seen it done. No, you're supposed to stop and be aware. So try to say it out loud. If you're disturbing someone, then just obviously don't say it out loud. Just say it in your mind, but kind of make sure you stop at everything. So just do it at the same time as I'm doing it. So for me, I see a camera, I see a chair, I see a door, I see a lock, and I see a pair of glasses. Those are 5 things I see around me. And then I say 4 things that I can touch. I can touch the little Elsa sticker on my thermos that my daughter put there. I can put the mouse mat that's lying here. I can touch the blanket on me. And I can touch the fabric of this stick for the bell. So those are 4 things that I can touch. And then we go to 3 things I can hear. Now you have to concentrate a little bit more. So for me, there's a car passing by that I can hear. And there is some kind of engine far away that sounds like a old boat, and it goes tuk, 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 tuk. It's obviously not a boat, but it's just some kind of tractor or something. And I can hear the sound of my computer. Those are 3 things that I can hear. And then we look for 2 things that you can smell. I can smell shampoo from myself because I just rinsed off in the shower. And I smelled rooibos because I'm drinking rooibos tea. And then there's 1 thing that you can taste. I taste toothpaste. A little bit of a minty flavor. So now just keep on sitting in whatever position you're sitting, or lying or standing. And if it's possible for you, just close your eyes and we'll start the meditation. So just start bringing your awareness to your breath. We're not really trying to feel every sensation of breath. We're just trying to feel or be aware of breath happening. And just observe your breath as you're breathing in and breathing out, breathing in and breathing out. It's preferable to start adjusting your position now rather than later, so that you get in a position where you feel comfortable and that you don't need to move away from later on. And just keep bringing your awareness back to your breath. As you release all the tension from the day, and ask yourself, is it okay if for 20 minutes I just let go of anything that has happened before today, or the day before, or the years before, or anything that will happen in the future, maybe after the sitting, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, a year from now, whatever it is that is on your mind. Ask yourself if it's okay to just let that go for now. You can solve all those problems later. You can think about all those things that are happening around you, or will happen, or has happened. But for right now, just be aware of breath going in and going out. And to make this a little bit easier, we will do an exercise where we count our breath, going from 1 to 8, and then down from 8 to 1. And we'll do the first set together, and then afterwards you can continue by yourself. So breathing in and breathing out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. 2. Breathing in and breathing out. 3. Breathing in and breathing out. 4. Breathing in and breathing out. 5. Breathing in and breathing out. 6. Breathing in and breathing out. 7. Breathing in and breathing out. 8. Breathing in and breathing out. 7. Breathing in and breathing out. 6. Breathing in and breathing out. 5. breathing in and breathing out. 4, breathing in and breathing out. 3, breathing in and breathing out. 2, breathing in and breathing out. 1. Now continue counting from 1 to 8, and then down from 8 to 1 as you observe your breath going in and breathing out. 1, breathing in and breathing out. In this particular meditation, we're not trying to control the breath. The way that I was breathing before when I was counting is not how I breathe when I meditate. It's simply to show that I'm breathing in and breathing out. Instead, we're trying to let breath happen by itself. Just see if you can get out of the way. Just observe your breath. Just see what it's doing when it's going in and out. See how it changes from being maybe fast when you sit down to possibly slower later on, or not. Maybe you started out with deep breaths, then it slows down to more shallow breaths. Maybe after a while you can't even feel yourself breathing. Whatever your breath does, just observe your breath as you're breathing in and breathing out. 1, breathing in and breathing out. Remember to be kind to yourself. Your thoughts might drift away. You might notice that you're counting 15, 16, 17, and that's fine. Just start over again. Or maybe you're lost in some fantasy or some thoughts about something that seems very important. And just say that's okay and go back to counting from 1 to 8 and 8 to 1. Just over and over and over again, come back to your breath as you're breathing in and breathing out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. When you're aware of your breath, try to be aware of breath happening now, not of a whole breath, as in there's a cycle of the breath going in and then turning around at the top with a little pause and going out. And then there's usually a longer pause before the breath goes in again. Try to not get stuck in this cycle, but instead see small slices of breath. So then it would be breath happening, and it's an in-breath. And then there's a pause before breath is happening, as you're breathing out. And ultimately there's a pause, and then it starts over again. So try to see the breath in slices in this small moment of now. Just breath, pause, breath, pause. As you're breathing in and breathing out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. when you start observing these slices of time, your awareness can sometimes become stuttering or staccato. It feels as if though when you're breathing it's almost pulsing. It's no longer a clean breath. This is quite normal, and it even happens sometimes, even without trying. When you've been meditating and you get up and start walking, you'll feel that, oh, I can't walk anymore. Because all of a sudden you're not being aware of a whole movement of your legs moving, but rather every single moment your legs are in movement. And then you kind of forget, oh, how did I take a step? Because you're no longer seeing the step, you're seeing the movement. So when you are observing your breath, and if you feel that staccato, that little bit strange sensation, don't push against it, don't try to force through it, just observe and see what happens. And realize that there's no rush to do this. It's not something you're going to get this meditation and then you've figured it out. This is something you'll be doing for years. And you'll become more skilled at observing just this moment. Not only observing, but actually just experiencing just this moment as you're breathing in and breathing out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. We're looking for expansion rather than contraction. We're looking for openness rather than being closed. We're looking for relaxation rather than tension. So when you're observing these slices of breath, see if you can see any tension. It's quite easy when you begin doing this or any kind of meditation that we create more tension or friction. This pressure we're trying to push against to kind of focus in on this breath as it's happening, that is actually the opposite of what we're wanting to do. We're trying to create the lack of distortion, the lack of pressure, which is when the self gets dissolved and when this perception of time is attenuated until it doesn't feel as if though time is passing. So when you observe your breath, just let breath happen as if though it's on a blank canvas and you're just observing your breath going in and going out. One, breathing in and breathing out. As usual, if you want to, you can just keep on sitting, or you can open your eyes, have some tea, and ask if any questions if you have them. This was so weird for me because when I observe these slices of time, hi Stephen, nice to see you again. When you observe these slices of time, it really changes your perception of time. Sometimes it's more and sometimes it's less. The sitting for me, it felt like I just sat down and all of a sudden it was over. I'm like, oh, I completely missed that. So it was a bit, I thought we had a bit longer left. But it really does change your perception of time passing when you're just observing these slices. And it's not an on-off thing most of the time. It's more a scale that changes, and then gradually sometimes it really becomes on-off, it feels like, when you pop into one of these non-centric experiences. How did it feel for you when you meditated? Did anyone try the slices of time, and did you notice anything? Or was it the same? Sometimes it simply doesn't work. Looks like I'm lagging a little bit. See much. It definitely changed my perception of time. Today's meditation went by quicker in a sense for me. Yeah, that means you did something right. Well, sometimes if you have a lot of distortion coming up, it can feel like it takes a long time, but it really is time when you look at this, and I've observed this for thousands of hours, and it really became clear that time is not, it's not that time doesn't exist, it's just that our perception of time is so strange and wrong in many ways. I was a bit tired this time, so all kinds of hypnagogic images popped up, and I had to remind myself where I am. Yeah, that happens too sometimes. It's easy to get distracted by the mind and just fly away somewhere. It was very different for me this time, says Mindful Mama. Last time I became very clear. This time I had a monkey mind. Yeah. And that's the thing with meditation, it's not like this. And many people think, oh, I did something wrong this time. I did it better last time because then it was clear and it's supposed to be clear. Whereas this time, I even said too much now. I think that's when you're doing it right. That's bad of me. Because that's not how it works. It depends on where. There's so many factors that play into this when you sit down. It could be that your mind before this was really aggravated without you even knowing it, or maybe there was something that was going on in the background, and now when you slowed it down, all of that came up. Or maybe you haven't been as aware during the week as you thought you was, and then that came up. So it doesn't mean that it was worse this time than last time. I'm not saying you're saying this. I'm just saying that many people tend to feel that way about meditation. We want it to get better and better. And if all of a sudden it doesn't work, then we're obviously doing something wrong. And that's just not the case. Many times you're doing the right thing, and that doesn't mean it's going to get better and better. You might, in fact, have a harder time after a while. As Tim also said, yes, it was also quicker for me today. But it was a nice practice. Yeah. Nice. I'm thinking more and more about how to do these meditation and what to share and what to talk about. Even my channel, I look at a lot of channels, and the problem is I don't fall under a category with law of attraction or many of the other non-dualities, or like there's a lot of umbrellas you can jump into under, but I don't really have that. So I'm trying to figure out if I should just come up with my own umbrella, and which is basically what I'm doing, but maybe being a bit more clear about that, because there's not really any point for you to come here and just have another ex-monk who talks about meditation. I mean, there's 1,000 of those on YouTube, very likely. So instead, I'm thinking more and more of just sharing how I see things and how I observe them. And that was difficult before, because when I was a monastic, I wasn't allowed to do that. I had to say what my tradition was saying, otherwise I was kind of breaking my precepts in a way. Yeah, I've been thinking about that lately, so we'll see what happens. I think there will be more things like this. Does anyone have any questions today or anything you've thought about? Yes, I do, Mats. I have not many spots, but I have a few spots open. If you want to, there's a, I think my email is on most of the videos, like in the first pinned comment. So you can just send an email and I'll get back to you. I have also thought about, I'm really wanting to make a course, but again, it's the same thing. I want to make my course. I don't want to make just another Anapanasati course about meditation. And I want to really capture what we're doing here and what I've been doing these last decade, and trying to get that into an easy way to approach meditation, because people make it so complicated, and people have when I talk to people who haven't meditated, they have so many strange ideas about what is supposed to happen or how it's supposed to be. And I think that's one of the issues to this, that people just have completely counterproductive thoughts about what they're supposed to experience, which makes it more difficult for them to meditate. Stephen asks, what kind of stuff do you cover in code? I'm sorry, I can't see the last part of the comment, but I think you say cover. Well, basically I have two different kinds. Either we do it for 1 month, and if it's for 1 month, then we'll take topics. Sometimes people come with something they have that's difficult or bothering them, and we'll use that to then look at the distortions we have towards that, which is my system of observing this tension you have towards things. And it's just a way of observing these events that are happening or will happen, and then letting go of that. I've had people come to me with they've been stuck with a business plan, and we talked about that, and we looked at the distortion they had towards making a business plan and deciding what they wanted to do. And then after we talked for quite a while about that, they just, oh, I get it now. Oh, so I'm supposed to do this. And they said they kind of made up the plan, and they thought I gave them the business plan, which I didn't. I just helped them get rid of the distortion towards the plan, and then it was easy for them to make the plan. So if it's 1 month, then I do that. If we do, I also have a 3-month program where we cover more. Well, you can do that, the same thing during the 3 months if you want to. But I also have a program that I'm developing where it's the first month we look at distortion. What is it? How can you observe it? And we discuss about it and go into more detail about what it actually is. And then the second month we could focus more on these slices of time of how we're how we're perceiving reality or time passing. And then in the last month, I focus on what is actually the most important part. And in a way, you could have started with that, but it's just much easier to take it in steps. At least I found that, because I've tried different ways of helping people with this. And both works. I mean, many ways work, but it does help to get an idea of what you're doing. And then the last one is to just feel good. And not just good as in good feeling sensations, but as in a peaceful joy, a peacefulness that comes, that the peacefulness I'm after is when you're out on a misty morning and you can smell the spring air and you hear the birds and it's just quiet. There's no traffic, no civilization. You're just listening to nature and you're feeling the damp air on your skin, and there's a light breeze, and you just stand there in nature and you go, there's a joy in that, there's a peacefulness, there's an appreciation for being alive, for just being here, and really enjoying being here. You don't need to go somewhere, but very often we feel this feeling, we're like, oh, wait a minute, I need to take up my camera. I need to capture this, which I mean, if you're old enough and you've tried capturing enough of those moments, you know that you can never capture that, because it's not something that it's not about what you're seeing, it's about how you're perceiving what you're seeing. So the last step, which is in a way the first step also, is to learn how to view all of reality that way, to be able to be with friends and family and just by yourself and not feel I need to go somewhere else, I need to become something else. We have this underlying constant churning inside of us that most people are simply not aware, but it drives us. I need to do this because I have this urge to do it, and if I don't, then who would I be? If I didn't have that urge, what would I become? So the last step is actually looking at that and then applying that. And it's not as if though in these 3 months you're going to figure all this out and then it's kind of done. It's understanding the basics of how this works, and then for some people I work longer with them, and then we continue working with things that come up. So that's basically what I do in the coaching. Stephen is saying, I feel like I have a distortion in choosing a career path. Is this something I can work on? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I would just now give you a tip on how to do that, if you watch my videos about, like I said, I will make more videos about this, which makes it clearer. But if you observe the feeling of, I'm going to choose a career, and you feel what that feels like, you'll feel a lot of, like I call it distortion, tension, pushing and pulling. You feel a pressure towards, oh, it's important that I choose the right path, because if not, then something terrible is going to happen. And no one tells us what this terrible thing is, but everyone has this feeling, I need to make the right choice, and that's very important. If I don't, then something is going to be absolutely terrible, and I don't know what it is that will happen if I don't become this person I'm supposed to be or find my true path. So we would then look at this feeling, and what we do, which is really important, we don't push it down, and we also don't express it, meaning that it's not about not feeling the feeling, which is a mistake many people do. It's also not about like telling everyone about it or taking the right, it's not about making the right choice. it's not that you need to make the right choice. What I help people do is to feel that you're okay with whatever choice you make, because you have all this distortion, and then very likely, I don't know your age, but very likely you have your parents' thoughts and ideas of what you should take as a career path, and that's pushing on you. And then you have society, which is telling you like, well, you need to do this. You can't just go out and become a what do you call those people who throw the garbage in the garbage truck like that? That's not something you do. But I could really see that would actually, in one way, if I would have the body for it, the physique, that would actually be a really awesome job. Imagine just like riding on the back of a truck, and then you jump off and you take this and you throw them in and you move around, and you help society keep it clean. Like, there's a lot of things that make garbage truck guys or girls like superheroes. It's a really cool job, and I could and there's so much you can work with that on distortion, and how good it would actually be to work as a garbage truck man. And not at all talking down on people who work with garbage trucks. What I'm saying is that we have all these distortions around us, so it's very likely that whatever path you choose, Stephen, you are not choosing that yourself. You're making that choice because of all these other influences around you, and because of fear, and because of anxiety, which is usually not a good reason to, it's usually not a good space in which to make choices. And that's also how when I have people have conflict and we look at that, I always try to make them look at the distortion they have and let go of that first before they try to solve the conflict or confront the person or talk to them. Because if you come up to someone and you have a lot of anger and you're really, oh, you son of a bitch, and they're so angry, and then they try to talk to them, that's usually not that productive, and they're going to try to protect themselves because now you're attacking them like, oh, no, I didn't do anything wrong. Whereas if you go up and you say, you know what, I think it was last time someone talked about pooping, or maybe it was a coaching call. If someone has their dog and their poops on your doorstep, I mean, that's not really a nice thing to do. But if you go out and yell at them, they're probably going to say, oh, you go to hell, I don't care about your thing. But if you go out and say, like, hey, this is my doorstep, I mean, this is not nice. Could you maybe do this somewhere else and pick up the poop? If you do it not in a passive-aggressive way, but actually, and not even, it's not about being calm when you say it, like meaning sounding calm. But if you really don't have that distortion, it's so much easier to have conversations, and it's so much more enjoyable, which comes back to the last step I was talking about in these 3 months, where it's all about enjoying, feeling that even a conversation like that is enjoyable. If you can just take you out of the way, meaning that you need to have it a certain way, then it's just a conversation with another person, and very likely most people are actually nice people. It's just that we have conflicts with them about us needing things to be a certain way. When I say that, I also need to emphasize it's not about letting people run over you, letting them do whatever you want to, which is a misunderstanding that is quite common in Buddhist practices and many of the Eastern philosophies, because you take away the self. So obviously I can't have a will, I can't have a preferred choice for what's going to happen. And yeah, that's a deeper topic, but it all comes back to the distortion and this sense of self. I hope that made sense, Stephen. I see Barely Awesome is saying, I missed the live. I thought it started 3 p.m. Eastern, not 2. Sorry, we have daylight savings time. Maybe you haven't changed it yet. I'm actually not sure if the whole world does it at the same time. That was a great explanation, Steve. So it makes perfect sense. I have a lot to work on. Yeah, we all do. But the good thing is, which in the beginning, Stephen, and I really like have patience, because when you start out and people get so euphoric because they have these awakening experiences, but I think it's completely overrated. But the self can drop away, and then you feel like, okay, I'm kind of done now. Or they go through all these big changes, like fundamentally deep changes, and we think that we're done, but there's so much, and the big things are just the big things, and it's really good to work on those and get over them. But then you have distortions towards, I don't like this music, or I don't like it when people use that word, or you have a distortion towards, what does this feel like? It's not an unpleasant or pleasant distortion necessarily, but we have a what should I call this? We have a idea of what everything feels like. So even though you're not aware of it, I have a feeling of when I look at that, I don't actually look. Sorry, I'm looking at the thermos. I'm not really looking at the thermos only. I am looking at the thermos and I have a sensation of, I know this is mine, that gives me a sensation. I know this is metal, that gives me a sensation. I know there's something taste inside of it, that gives me a sensation. So I have a lot of distortion, a lot of pressure or tension, but it's very, very subtle, and it can even feel pleasant. It actually isn't in comparison to not having it. And if you think about how a child sees something, they don't have that. They don't understand mind. They don't even know what metal is. They don't know what's in here. They don't even know it does this. I mean, all of those things are distortion, but they're so subtle and so small. And people think that when they get over these big things, they're kind of, I'm kind of done now. And I don't want to scare anyone now, but it really, if people knew how many layers and how many levels there is to kind of go through this, it's insane. But it can also be like that, just go away when you go into non-centric experiences and it all drops away. And that's a really useful thing to go through, because then it all makes more sense and you can see, but you can also get frustrated because I want to get back to there, which is a distortion. So it's a really, yeah, as I said, I have a whole philosophy that's kind of come out of my own practice and my own way of viewing this. And I think that I will be doing that more instead of just normal meditation practices. Let's see. Mindful Mama is saying, I used to have a lot of this is how some other person should behave. Yep, that's distortion. It is. I have been observing my distortion in situations like that lately, and it's so much nicer when that is mostly gone. Good. Because when you're doing that, it's not that you can't have opinions. If you see someone hurting themselves physically or emotionally or mentally, that's obviously not in Buddhism they say skillful, which is I'm not going to use that because that has so much with it, but it's a counterproductive way if we're aiming to be happy. It's not good to hurt yourself if you're aiming to feel happy and really enjoy being alive. That's not really something that helps you. So you can still have that thought or that idea, but without the pushing against them doing, okay, that was really extreme, but maybe they just treat their kids in a way you don't agree with, or maybe they behave in a way or talk in a way or make choices in a way that you don't agree with. And I have a lot of people around me that I think their choices are really, I just, from my perspective, seeing them doing, that's very likely not going to get you what you want. But at the same time, I don't actually know if that's true. I could obviously be wrong. So this is not about becoming the best person at solving problems. It's about becoming free from feeling that it needs to be a certain way and just accepting everything. Accepting is another way of saying it. Let's see. Barely Awesome says, in the US daylight savings is March 10. Ah, that's interesting. Yes, I thought I've heard about that because in Sweden it actually was Saturday, so that's 2 days ago. Or would that be the 31st? Or was it yesterday, the 30th? That's strange. No, it's Monday today. I think it was Saturday. Oh no, maybe it's the Saturday of the last Saturday of March. I might be completely making this stuff up. I'm not really sure. But it's absolutely not the 10th of March since we did it 2 days ago. Barely Awesome. I don't get what a distortion is. That's good. That's the first step. So the distortion, the way that I explain it, okay, now I went into there's so many layers to observing this, but now I went into the more nitty-gritty stuff, which is not really useful in the beginning to think about too much. It's good to be aware of it, but you don't really need to focus on it because you don't feel it yet, or you're not aware of it. A distortion is, my thought behind this is actually based on Buddhism. Buddhism says that everything is dukkha, translated into everything is suffering. The word dukkha from the beginning, long before the Buddha or Hinduism existed, was when you had a wheel and the axle in the wheel had sand in it. It would go there would be friction, there would be a distortion, there would be something not rolling, flowing smoothly, compared to sukha, when the wheel is rolling smoothly. So there's some kind of something in the wheel that is making it not roll the way it's supposed to roll. That is dukkha, which is translated into suffering, which is a really crappy translation according to me. But if you understand it, then it actually makes a lot of sense. I say that as a caveat. So the distortion comes with, the easiest way to understand it is if I have my idea of what I want reality to be like. I want that person over there to behave in a certain way. Let's say my child, I want my child to go brush her teeth when I ask her to. Reality, she doesn't really care about brushing her teeth. She might not even like it. She'd rather go play instead. So obviously there's something not matching here, right? My desire is that I want my daughter to go brush her teeth. Reality, she doesn't brush them. Now, if you're in a slice of now, which is why I said the second month when I work with the coaching, is just observing these slices. If you're just observing these slices, there can never really be a problem with the now. Meaning that the now, because the now just is, right? It's just this here, and it's just there. I can't change now. That's insanity. You cannot change now because it's already now. You can change the now that is coming after now, which will ironically also be now. So this is the conundrum. If you think too much about it, it kind of just creates more problems. But the idea is that we need to accept now, because it is now. Reality is, it is. And then we don't just sit there and say, okay, well, this sucks. She doesn't want to brush her teeth, so I guess she doesn't need to brush her teeth. No, then you move towards having her brush the teeth. But what we will have many times is that reality, no brushing teeth, my desire or my want. Desire is a stronger word that has more distortion or friction or pressure in it. Instead of, if I just say want, there's less feeling of pressure in want than desire. So when they don't match, the problem is not reality. We just confirm that because we cannot change now. It is. It already is. There's nothing you can do about now. You can do something about this next now. You can move in a direction that changes that. This now cannot change, so that's not the problem. My want to have my daughter brush her teeth is a pretty reasonable want. I mean, if she doesn't brush her teeth, she's gonna have problems with her mouth hygiene. She'll start having holes in her teeth. She'll have a bad breath, and she'll get other issues that comes from not brushing your teeth. So that's not also the problem. The problem is this thing happening here in between. When they don't match, we go, and you get all this pressure building up, like, I want this to, and we believe that if I just feel bad enough, if I just tense up enough, then it will change, which it obviously doesn't. So by not focusing on what's here now, and not focusing on, necessarily focusing on my want, that can help also. Because if we change our beliefs or wants into, oh, well, I want my daughter to do whatever she wants to do. Well, now there's no distortion. Problem solved, right? Well, the problem is not solved because you haven't actually taken this away. You just kind of change the parameters so you don't have that pushing back. But there's still this pushing here if you get the next thing. So in this practice, we focus on that distortion, this pressure first, and then we try to do the change. Obviously, if it's something that's urgent, if it's panic, if there's an accident or something that needs to be taken care of, then obviously you don't stop and just feel, then you do what you need to do, but always keep an awareness of what's happening inside of you. And it happens in different places in people. You can even feel it when you sit down and you hear something. Oh, I need to go open the door. You can feel your whole hip kind of moving, wanting to move. There's a distortion that tries to move you away. Was it Barely Awesome that asked it, right? Yes. Did that make sense, Barely Awesome? Did that clear it up for you? See, Stephen is saying, most people live their entire lives in distortion. Yeah. How would their lives change if they get rid of if they got rid of a lot of their distortion in terms of what would we do with our free time? That is a really interesting question. And for me, that there's a zombie mode. What happens when when you start distorting against all these, again, this is just the core explanation, but I said time also is created by distorting towards the past and the future, and you just get so lost. And you can see this, the worst for me is when I see someone in a cash register when I go shopping, and they just stand there and just like, oh, hello, yeah, yeah, we have this, and then it's that'll be 59 kroners, okay, yeah, and they're not even there. They're just completely lost in either the past, future, some fantasy they're running in their mind, and it can even be something that maybe gives you a little bit of pleasant sensations, but it's just completely removed from reality now. We're trying to become here, really see that it's not that you need to get away from now, it's not that you need to change the now and get away from it. It's that we're trying to learn and really see that this is enjoyable. Wherever you are right now is enjoyable. Sure, there are circumstances and events around us that make it really difficult to enjoy, especially if you're in extreme circumstances like a war zone. That's not going to be easy to find joy, but even there it is possible. I'm not saying I could do that, or that you could, or even should, but for most of us, our lives, it's really heaven. And I'm not talking about our circumstance. I'm really meaning that it's so there. It's so simple in a way to do this. Sorry, no, it's not simple. It's so uncomplicated, but it's very difficult to do it. In terms of what would we do? Yes, barely awesome. I feel like I'm 45% of the way to grasping the concept. It sounds like distorting is the friction between reality and desire. This distortion causes suffering. So is the desire itself the distortion? So the distortion doesn't cause suffering. The distortion is the suffering. Is the desire itself the distortion? No. That's why I said that the distortion, desire might not be that. It's very close. Desire isn't necessarily the best word, because desire has a lot of feeling of, oh, I need this, I desire it, instead of if I say I want this, or I believe this is the best choice to make. That feels less, you feel there's less, it needs to be a certain way. So this is just your philosophy. The way I describe it many times, or used to describe it when I gave courses as a monk, was that I would say that reality is a certain way, and then you take on a belief system. So my religion has these 10 precepts, we would say then, if I was a Buddhist. And then if you just take these precepts, everything will be fine. You'll have no suffering, because now you have the idea that we're all one and we should all help each other and be loving and caring. And I mean, that's obviously better. That's a more skillful, a more useful set of desires or wants to have than I need to crush everyone else to be sure that I am on top and I don't care what happens to other people, as long as I succeed and I am the one who stands at the front in the end. I don't care about anything else. That's the most important thing. If that is your want and what you want to achieve, that's going to create so much distortion that it's going to be almost impossible to enjoy life. I'm not saying you couldn't, I'm just saying it's going to be very difficult. Whereas if you have the ideas of, say, for instance, the 10 precepts of the Buddhism, which is something that kind of helps take away these distortions. But you could also use the 10 Commandments, or I'm not familiar with Islam or many of the other religions, but they all have similar thoughts and ideas of how you should treat other people. And having those thoughts and ideas, and especially if you believe that they're handed down from divinity, then obviously it would take away a lot of distortion and make your life easier. Or do you need the tango? Do you need to do the tango? No, absolutely not. You do not need to feel bad to experience joy. As long as you're doing the distortion, then yeah, that makes sense. But when you realize that there's a completely different alternative, it's not about. It's about something else. So no, you don't need to distort your way into this. It can be really useful to have the distortion when you're doing this in the beginning to understand what it is. And it's not about pushing it down or expressing it. It's about experiencing it. It's about fully feeling your emotions and seeing that you are creating them. You're creating whatever is going on inside of here. Really good question. And yeah. There's a lot that can be said about it, and I could continue for a long time, but it's getting late. And I appreciate questions like this because it helps me also. I feel this. For me, this is not really a philosophy that I'm just kind of thinking, oh, this sounds nice, or I read it in a book. This is really how the last 1.5 decades I've been kind of breaking down my reality and really trying different things. And if you watch my movie, Why I Became a Buddhist Monk, I became a Buddhist monk because I just didn't know what I was supposed to do. Like, what am I supposed to do to succeed in life? What is it I'm supposed to do? And what I figured out, I didn't understand that then, but that was that this distortion is what is driving me. That is why you can never feel satisfied. So, Stephen, even if you find the perfect job, the perfect career, you're not going to be satisfied. You believe you are, and you feel happy for a little while when you achieve that thing, or you get your diploma, or whatever it is. But then there's going to be something else. And it always is like that. Mindful Mama. So the desire is not the distortion. It's not the is not the now, but the fighting in between that isn't matching. Yes, exactly. The desire is not the distortion, is not the reality. It's that thing, the fighting in between. Because you have, okay, so reality is, I want everyone to, okay, let's say we take a Buddhist precept or idea, like treat everyone with loving kindness. We should be kind to other people and not eat animals, not kill anyone. And reality is there is war. And then all of a sudden, hey, they don't match. Now you have distortion in between, even though you have a very skillful and very useful and very good, in my opinion, want for how you want reality to be. And I'm not saying take this away, absolutely not. I'm not saying this is a bad idea. I'm just saying that it by itself does not solve the problem with the distortion. It just helps it in some ways. And it makes it less, because you don't have so many things you're distorting to. But it's also very possible that you take that belief and then you create more distortion. I remember seeing some nuns at a center I was at, and there was an eagle flying down to catch a rabbit, I think it was. And they were all cheering because the rabbit was getting away, and they're like, oh, like chewing or maybe it was a fox. No, I think it was an eagle. And they were chewing the eagle away, like, get away, don't take the rabbit. And it's kind of, they had distortion towards nature. It's got, that doesn't make any sense at all. That's what eagles do. They catch rabbits. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing evil, or it's just what what an eagle does. You're going to get angry at sharks because they catch fish. I mean, it's how reality is. So even though you might have good beliefs and wants, and you can work towards that, but we also have to kind of accept what reality is. Okay, really nice. I hope that cleared things up for people. And it helps me as well, because when I talk about it, it gives me a better understanding of how to share it. Even just because I feel it doesn't mean I can just tell you what to do. And it's not about intellectually understanding this. If you said barely awesome, okay, I get it now. Yeah, I understand this. It's this thing here in between. That doesn't change anything. That it's still the same. That the whole thing then is that, okay, how do I actually use this to do something useful? So it's a concept that you need to then apply and do something with. Nice. Thank you. I really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed the meditation as well. I hope you did too. There will be another one on Thursday. Then it isn't guided. Then we just sit together and you can do whatever technique you want to. Obviously, you can do that. Now also, I don't get offended if you come here and sit and do your own thing. It's just nice to sit with other people. Thanks, everyone. Yeah. Really enjoyed it. And I'll see everyone on Thursday again. Thank you. Bye.